Karen Whitmore's perfectly manicured fingernails dug into her steering wheel as her pristine white BMW lurched violently to the left, nearly careening into the drainage ditch. The metallic scraping sound that followed made her teeth clench so hard she thought her dental work might crack. "What the hell?" she gasped, slamming on the brakes. She threw the car into park and stormed out, her designer heels clicking against the asphalt like gunshots. There, carved deep into what should have been a smooth surface, was a crater the size of a manhole cover. Fresh tire tracks led away from the scene, disappearing down the dirt road that cut through the Hendersons' ranch property. "Those idiots!" Karen shrieked to no one in particular, her voice echoing across the empty countryside. Her perfectly styled blonde hair whipped around her face as she examined the damage to her wheel alignment. This was the third time this month. The dirt road wasn't technically illegal. It had existed long before the Meadowbrook Estates HOA was established. But Karen, as the newly elected president, had made it her personal mission to civilize this backwater corner of their upscale development. The Hendersons' ranch trucks, with their oversized tires and complete disregard for proper road maintenance, were destroying the very foundation of property values she'd worked so hard to protect. She pulled out her phone and speed-dialed Margaret Chen, the HOA secretary and her most reliable ally. "Margaret, it's happened again," Karen said without preamble. "I need you to pull the original development contracts. There has to be something about road maintenance responsibilities." "Karen, we've been through this." Margaret's tired voice crackled through the speaker. "The easement predates our authority by 40 years. Legally, we can't." "I don't care about legally," Karen snapped, pacing back toward her car. "I care about my property value and the fact that I just destroyed a $1,000 tire because some cowboy thinks he owns the road." She ended the call and stared down the dirt path where dust still hung in the air. The Hendersons had been polite, but firm in their previous conversations. Too polite, actually. The kind of polite that said they thought she was a joke. Well, she'd show them who was laughing. That evening, Karen sat in her home office surrounded by property surveys, municipal codes, and a laptop screen filled with contractor websites. If the law wouldn't help her, she'd find another way. The Hendersons might have history on their side, but she had something better: determination and a complete inability to let anyone tell her no. She picked up her phone again, this time calling a number she'd found in the yellow pages under excavation services. "Thompson Construction." "Yes, I need to discuss a small road improvement project. How quickly can you start?" The knock on Karen's door came at exactly 6 a.m. the next morning. She knew who it would be before she looked through the peephole, but the sight of Tom Henderson's weathered face still made her stomach drop. Behind him stood Jake, along with 2 other men she didn't recognize, all wearing the kind of expressions that suggested this wasn't going to be a friendly neighborhood chat. "Mrs. Whitmore." Tom's voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent decades dealing with difficult situations. "We need to discuss your landscaping project." Karen opened the door wearing her best intimidation outfit, a sharp business suit that had cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. "Mr. Henderson, I'm not sure what there is to discuss. If you're having vehicle troubles, perhaps you should contact your insurance company." "Cut the act," Jake interjected, his patience clearly exhausted. "We dug up the rest of your little surprise this morning. Took us 3 hours and a backhoe." One of the other men stepped forward, holding out a business card. "Ma'am, I'm Deputy Sheriff Collins. We need to talk about malicious destruction of property and creating road hazards." The words hit Karen like ice water. She'd researched HOA authority and property easements, but she'd never considered that she might be breaking actual laws. "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "That road is destroying our property values. Someone had to take action." "By someone, you mean you personally hired a construction crew to bury concrete chunks in a public easement?" Deputy Collins pulled out a notebook, "Because that's vandalism, and depending on the damages, it could be a felony." Karen's mind raced through her options. Daniel was clearly off the table. They had physical evidence and probably witness statements from the construction crew. Attack felt like the only defense left. "Fine," she snapped. "Yes, I did it. And I'd do it again. Do you have any idea what it's like trying to maintain civilized standards in a community where people think they can just tear up roads with their oversized farm equipment? I've asked nicely. I've followed proper channels. Nobody would listen. Tom Henderson's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. Mrs. Whitmore, that road has been in my family for 60 years. My grandfather built it to get cattle to market. My father used it to keep this ranch running. And now my son uses it to make an honest living. We've never blocked anyone else from using it, and we maintain it better than the county maintains half their roads. But the noise, the dust, the damage to the main road is part of living in the country, Jake finished. You bought a house next to a working ranch. Did you think we were just going to stop working because you moved in? Deputy Collins cleared his throat. Ma'am, I need to know if you're willing to make restitution for the vehicle damage. Mr. Henderson's prepared to file charges otherwise. Karen looked at the faces surrounding her, the deputy with his official authority, the Hendersons with their quiet determination, and behind them, she could see several neighbors who'd apparently come to watch the show. Her perfectly controlled world was crumbling, and for the first time in years, she had absolutely no idea what to do next. How much? She asked quietly. $12,000 for the truck repairs, Tom said, plus removal of the remaining obstacles and restoration of the road surface, and a written agreement that you'll stop interfering with ranch operations. Karen's throat felt dry. $12,000 would hurt, but it was better than criminal charges. Still, something in her refused to surrender completely. I'll pay for the damages, she said finally. But I want something in writing too. Speed limits, dust control measures, restricted hours for heavy equipment. If I'm going to live next to a ranch, then we're going to find a way to coexist like civilized people. Tom Henderson studied her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. I think we can work something out. As the group dispersed, Karen remained standing in her doorway, watching Jake drive away in a borrowed truck. She'd lost this battle, but something told her the war was far from over. The Hendersons might have won this round with their reasonable demands and community support, but Karen Whitmore hadn't become HOA president by accepting defeat gracefully. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found what she was looking for. Environmental Protection Agency, Regional Office. If the Hendersons wanted to play hardball, she'd show them what real consequences looked like. 3 days later, Karen stood triumphantly beside a massive pile of broken concrete and rebar, watching the Thompson crew finish installing what she generously called speed management infrastructure. The chunks of recycled sidewalk, strategically buried just beneath the dirt surface, would teach those ranch hands to respect other people's property. Ma'am, you sure about this? Asked Joe Thompson, the crew foreman, wiping sweat from his forehead. This seems like it might cause some serious vehicle damage. That's entirely the point, Karen replied, inspecting her handiwork with satisfaction. Sometimes people need consequences to learn proper behavior. She positioned the obstacles carefully, not visible from the surface, but substantial enough to make any truck think twice about speeding down her road. Well, technically it wasn't her road, but that was a minor detail she chose to overlook. The first casualty came sooner than expected. Karen was enjoying her morning coffee when she heard the tremendous bang followed by creative cursing that would make a sailor blush. She rushed to her front window in time to see Jake Henderson's pickup truck sitting at an odd angle, steam rising from underneath the hood. Jake emerged from the cab, his young face flushed with anger and confusion. He walked around the truck, knelt down, and began examining the undercarriage. When he stood up, his eyes went straight to Karen's house. She ducked below the windowsill, her heart racing with a mixture of guilt and vindication. It worked. Maybe now they'd understand that actions have consequences. 20 minutes later, her doorbell rang. Mrs. Whitmore? Jake Henderson stood on her porch, grease-stained and holding something in his hands. I think we need to talk. Karen opened the door with her most innocent expression. Oh my goodness, Jake? What happened? You look terrible. He held up a chunk of concrete, rebar still attached. This was buried in the road, right where everyone drives every day. His voice was level, controlled, but she could see the anger simmering underneath. My truck's totaled. The oil pan's cracked, the transmission's damaged, and I'm pretty sure the axle's bent. How awful! Karen gasped, clutching her pearls. Do you think it could have been left over from some old construction project? You know how these rural areas can be with cleanup. Jake's eyes narrowed. Ma'am, this concrete is fresh. Still has the stamp from Thompson Construction on it. Same company that was working on your property last week. The silence stretched between them like a drawn bowstring. Karen felt her carefully constructed innocence beginning to crack under his steady gaze. I'm sure I don't know what you're implying, she said finally. I'm not implying anything, Jake replied. I'm telling you that you just destroyed a working man's truck because you don't like sharing a road that doesn't belong to you. And I'm telling you that my father's going to want to have a conversation with you real soon. As he walked away, Karen slammed the door and leaned against it, her mind racing. She hadn't expected them to figure it out so quickly. But more importantly, she hadn't expected to feel this strange mixture of satisfaction and dread churning in her stomach.